Hello, I'm John Oliver, and tonight's main story is about a country that loves bombing its neighbors almost as much as it loves claiming to be the only democracy in the Middle East. That's right, folks, we're talking about Israel. Just the other day, Israel launched airstrikes near Damascus, the capital of Syria. Now I know what you're thinking. Israel bombing Syria? That's about as surprising as finding hummus in a Tel Aviv supermarket. But hold your horses, because there's a twist this time. These strikes weren't aimed at their usual targets like, hospitals or schools. This time Israel claimed they were trying to protect a minority group called the Druze. The strikes themselves were pretty dramatic, at least according to the Israeli media. Of course, Syria condemned the strikes, calling them a violation of their sovereignty. So, who are these Druze people, and why is Israel so keen on playing their knight in shining armor? Well, the Druze are a religious group that originated in Egypt over 1,000 years ago. They've got their own unique beliefs, which are kind of a mix of Islam, Judaism, and Greek philosophy. Over the centuries, the Druze have spread out across the Middle East with significant populations in Syria, Lebanon, and Israel. In Syria, the Druze have been trying to stay neutral in the country's brutal civil war. But staying neutral in a war zone is about as easy as finding a parking spot in New York City. They tried to stay out of the fighting, but the war has a nasty habit of dragging everyone into its orbit. And with various factions vying for power, the Druze have become targets for extremist groups, criminal gangs, and even the Syrian government itself. Now, Israel's involvement in Syria is nothing new. They've been meddling in their neighbors' affairs for decades, often under the guise of security concerns. Since the Syrian civil war broke out in 2011, Israel has carried out hundreds of airstrikes on Syrian territory. They claim these strikes are necessary to prevent Iran from establishing a military presence in Syria and to stop weapons shipments to Hezbollah in Lebanon. But some critics argue that these strikes are more about Israel asserting its dominance in the region and keeping Syria weak and unstable. The strikes have also resulted in civilian casualties, which Israel often dismisses as unfortunate but unavoidable. So, when Israel claims that their recent airstrikes near Damascus were all about protecting the Druze, it's understandable why some people might be a bit skeptical. It's like a wolf in sheep's clothing, claiming to protect the flock while secretly eyeing them up for dinner. Section 4, a community-divided Israeli Druze demand action. But here's where things get really interesting. You see, Israel isn't just home to a large Jewish population, it also has a significant Druze community, and many Israeli Druze have family ties to Syria. So when the news broke out about the violence against Druze in Syria, it sent shockwaves through the Israeli Druze community. Imagine finding out that your distant cousins, who you haven't seen in years because of some arbitrary border drawn by colonial powers, are being persecuted. They took to the streets demanding that their government do something to protect their Syrian brethren. They blocked roads, waved Druze flags, and chanted slogans like "Druze blood is not cheap." Some Israeli Druze even called for military intervention, arguing that Israel had a moral obligation to protect their people. Section 5. International response, a chorus of condemnation and calls for peace. The violence against the Druze in Syria and Israel's subsequent airstrikes drew condemnation from the international community. The US, always eager to play the role of world police, issued a strongly worded statement expressing their deep concern about the situation. They called for all parties to show restraint and urged the Syrian government to protect its citizens, which is a bit like asking a fox to guard the henhouse. But let's be honest, folks. Nobody really expects the Syrian government to suddenly develop a conscience and start protecting its citizens. As for Israel, they'll likely continue to carry out airstrikes in Syria whenever they feel like it, citing security concerns and the need to protect their interests. And the Druze, caught in the middle of this geopolitical chess game, will continue to pay the price. It's a tragic situation, but sadly it's nothing new in the Middle East, a region where history has a nasty habit of repeating itself.